He looks like a Jackson.
Oh, yes. He looks like a Jackson. He acts like a Jackson.
After DNA test, Donte Jackson finally knows who his real father is. For years, there's been whispers and rumors about who his real father might be. And now, after so much waiting, after so much guessing, after countless debates online, Donte finally has that answer. The person revealed to be his real father? It's not just some random name you've never heard before. So here's my advice. Don't blink, don't scroll, and definitely don't click away. Because the story of how Donte Jackson finally discovered who his real father is one of those rare moments in pop culture history. Donte Jackson confirms DNA test and result. In 2025, after decades of questions, whispers, and endless speculation, Donte Jackson finally decided it was time to seek a definitive answer about who his biological father was. And it wasn't a decision made lightly or for the sake of headlines. For years, he had lived with a gnawing curiosity, a quiet, personal unrest that never really allowed him to fully rest. And though the world seemed to have its own ideas about his parentage, he made it clear that this journey was never meant to be public. Why would someone feel such a deep need to know something so private? Donte, it seemed, had reached a point where not knowing had become heavier than facing the truth itself. He approached the matter with an almost obsessive discretion, determined to handle everything quietly, away from prying eyes, cameras, and gossip. Even those closest to him, the people who might have expected to be included, had no inkling of his plan. He didn't settle for an over-the-counter DNA test like some casual curiosity. Instead, he arranged to have his DNA analyzed by a top-tier, accredited private laboratory, the kind that guarantees absolute confidentiality and is often used by celebrities precisely because it ensures that nothing leaks to the media. The test itself was conducted in secret, professionally and meticulously, and his DNA was compared directly against preserved genetic material known to be linked to Michael Jackson, verified through an unbroken chain of custody, leaving no room for doubt or error. Donte carried out the process quietly, perhaps thinking about the weight of what such a result could mean, not just for him, but for his family, for public perception, and for the memories and myths that had swirled around him for so long. Did he anticipate the relief that would come? The heartbreak? Or the way it might shift the world's gaze? Only he could have known, but he faced it nonetheless, with calm determination, placing his personal need above public spectacle. When he finally felt ready to address the matter publicly, he did so with simplicity and restraint, choosing to record a short, understated video rather than call a press conference or write a long statement. In it, he made a single clear declaration. Michael Jackson was not his father. He explained, in words that seemed carefully measured yet quietly emotional, that he had taken the test for himself, not for the media, not for fans, not even for family members, but simply to understand a piece of his own life that had been missing for decades. He refused to name the man who was his biological father, emphasizing that his search was for personal closure, not for notoriety or spectacle. How long had he carried the weight of this uncertainty? Did the thought of finally knowing bring him peace? Or was it complicated, layered with decades of assumption, hope, and disappointment? Donte himself seemed to suggest that the answer brought both relief and reflection, a resolution to a long-standing question that had quietly shaped his life in ways few could fully appreciate. Even after the results were in, Donte made a conscious choice to keep them private for months, holding the information in a simple envelope that, in its unassuming form, represented a monumental shift in his personal story. He shared it with no one. Not online, not with close family, not even with all his siblings. and he seemed to understand that the timing of disclosure was just as important as the truth itself. Knowing, he reflected, did not erase the life he had lived, the family who had raised him, or the memories that had defined him. Rather, it completed a missing part of the puzzle, a quiet acknowledgement of the one piece that had eluded him for so long. In his own words, knowing the truth doesn't change how I was raised or who raised me, but it fills in a part of the puzzle that was always missing, a sentiment that felt both humble and profoundly human. Did he ever imagine how others might react, the shock, the curiosity, or the assumptions that would inevitably follow? Perhaps, but he seemed guided less by anticipation of reaction and more by the simple private need to finally know. The Jackson family, true to form, responded with their characteristic silence. There were no public statements, no visible signs of support or disagreement, only the quiet endurance that the family had long practiced in the face of storms, controversies, and rumors. Some whispers suggested that family members had subtly requested Dante to keep certain details private, reinforcing the idea that even in matters of personal discovery, discretion remained a guiding principle. Since obtaining the results, Dante's presence at major family gatherings has been noticeably reduced, and he has skipped events such as Michael Jackson's memorials, quietly asserting his autonomy and the boundaries of his private journey. How much of this decision was shaped by a desire to avoid public scrutiny, and how much was a natural evolution of personal grief and reflection? It seems likely that both played a role, intertwining the complex threads of identity, family loyalty, and personal truth in a story that has long fascinated and puzzled observers. And now, as the public begins to react to Dante's bold steps toward reclaiming his identity, the conversation is heating up in ways that are impossible to ignore. So stick with us, stay glued, because what comes next doesn't just reveal reactions, it unveils the deeper, more intimate truths of a man, quietly stepping into his own life, on his own terms. Public reacts as Dante reclaims his identity. When Donte Jackson finally decided to speak on the long-running paternity rumors that had swirled around him for years, the reaction was instantaneous and, as one might expect in today's world, explosive. Social media lit up like a live wire, comments and reactions pouring in from every corner, each person seeming to have their own opinion, their own theory, their own demand for answers. He did not approach this moment with fanfare or drama, no grand entrance, no over-the-top reveal. Instead, he chose simplicity, almost deliberately, wearing a plain black hoodie and speaking directly to the camera with a calm, measured tone. Was it courage, or simply a desire to finally set the record straight on his own terms? The timing of it, the quietness of it, made people pause, because Dante didn't just announce facts, he shared a truth that had been quietly shaping his life for decades. Within minutes, his name was everywhere, trending across multiple platforms, with hashtags and speculation growing like wildfire. The public response, as often happens in such cases, was sharply divided. Some could not accept the revelation, questioning its validity, some outright accusing him of lying or trying to control the narrative. "He's lying. That test must be fake," wrote one commenter, while another insisted, "This is just damage control. He's not telling the whole story." And yet, there were also voices of understanding, voices that recognized the personal courage behind his choice. "He finally found peace," someone wrote. "He didn't owe the world this truth, but he shared it anyway." The conversation spilled over into news coverage, blogs, forums, and even casual discussions among friends who suddenly found themselves debating not just who Dante's father was, but why it mattered so much to him. one could almost hear the unspoken question in the air. Does knowing change everything? Or just fill in the pieces we didn't know were missing? In the video itself, Dante spoke carefully, choosing words that were both honest and protective. He acknowledged the speculation surrounding Michael Jackson's role in his life, and in a way that seemed almost reflective, he admitted, "I understand why people believed it. I wondered it too. I loved Michael. He was part of my life, but biologically, he was not my father." There was no dramatics here, no overstatement, just a simple truth that he offered to the public while keeping some boundaries intact, deliberately choosing not to name his biological father. This decision, while frustrating to some, revealed a lot about his priorities. He was not looking for attention, he was looking for closure and clarity, not a scandal or viral moment. Isn't it remarkable, in an age where oversharing is the norm, that someone could choose honesty without exploiting it for fame? For Dante, the truth was not about a name or a headline. It was about understanding himself, completing a part of his personal narrative that had been missing for far too long. He spoke of identity and discovery, saying, "Knowing doesn't change how I was raised or who raised me, but it fills in a part of the puzzle that was always missing." And in that, there was something almost universally relatable. How often do people discover truths about their past and feel the subtle shift of relief or newfound clarity? Those closest to him noticed it too. Friends and family commented on a change in his demeanor, a subtle lightness that suggested a burden had been lifted. It was the kind of moment that doesn't make headlines for drama, but resonates because it is profoundly human. The relief of finally confronting something deeply personal, of finding a piece of oneself that had long been hidden. And for Donte Jackson, that moment has arrived. After years of speculation, of whispers, of questions that seemed impossible to answer, he finally breaks his silence, revealing truths that have been long hidden, opening up in a way that touches not just his story, but something in all of us who have ever carried a secret or waited for clarity. So stick around, stay glued, because what he shares is not just a confession, it is a journey of revelation that you won't want to miss for a single second. Donte Jackson breaks silence after years of speculation. For decades, the name Donte Jackson has stirred curiosity and fueled endless speculation within the Jackson family orbit, a circle that has long been under the spotlight due to the unparalleled fame of Michael Jackson. Born on June 13, 1992 in Las Vegas, Dante's origins remained shrouded in mystery, leaving fans, insiders, and media outlets alike to endlessly debate and wonder about his true parentage. Many wondered, could it really be that someone so close to the Jackson family was living in plain sight? Yet no one truly knew his story? Rumors about Dante's connection to Michael Jackson began gaining traction in 2009, particularly after The Sun published claims from insiders suggesting that Dante, who was then 18 and living under the care of Catherine Jackson, might be Michael's son, conceived during a brief, largely undocumented relationship with an unknown woman in Las Vegas in the 1990s. Those close to the family reportedly remarked that Michael had always been very attached to Dante, noting that even Dante might not have known the full truth about his own parents. Could the legendary pop star really have had a child whose existence was kept so private? Or was it all speculation fueled by the public's fascination with the Jackson family? These rumors did not emerge in isolation. The late 2000s were a period rife with paternity claims surrounding Michael Jackson, as multiple individuals came forward asserting that they or their children were connected to the pop icon, further blurring the lines between fact and fiction. Figures like Omer Bhatti and Brandon Howard were also rumored to be Michael's secret children, adding fuel to an already combustible mix of curiosity, gossip, and intrigue. The ambiguity around Dante's family background only intensified the speculation. At first, it was widely believed that he might be the son of Randy Jackson and Alejandra Oaziaza, but inconsistencies in timing quickly discredited this theory, as Dante was born only 8 months after one of their other children, making the timeline impossible. Some sources have claimed that Catherine and Joe Jackson formally adopted Dante in 1994, after which he was raised by Jermaine Jackson and Alejandra at the sprawling Havenhurst family estate. Yet even this explanation left fans with lingering questions. Others went so far as to suggest that Joe Jackson himself could be Dante's biological father, a notion that only deepened the mystery and created an almost labyrinthine narrative that seemed almost too complicated to untangle. The constant shuffling of Dante between various family members over the years, from an initial adoption by Catherine and Joe to being raised by Jermaine and Alejandra, was often cited by observers as a pattern that made little sense if there was nothing more to the story. It raised the question, why would a child be moved around so much within a family unless there were deeper secrets at play? Fans and observers also pointed to small but telling details that seemed to suggest there was more to Dante's story than what was publicly known. For instance, the absence of his father's name on his birth certificate was widely discussed and speculated upon, feeding the impression that there was something intentionally obscured about his lineage. Online fan communities became particularly active, with discussion threads, forums, and social media platforms full of questions and theories about Dante's true parentage. Some commenters openly wondered whether Dante was perhaps adopted from outside the family by Jermaine and Alejandra, reflecting the enduring uncertainty and fascination with his identity. Jackson family timeline reveals inconsistencies. Examining the Jackson family records over the years reveals a tangle of chronological inconsistencies that have left many questioning Donte Jackson's parentage. And the more one digs, the more confusing the story becomes. At first, it seemed straightforward. Dante was thought to be the son of Randy Jackson and Alejandra Oaziaza, a couple whose relationship began in 1986, when Alejandra was around 17 and Randy was 24. They never married, yet they had 2 children together, Genevieve Catherine Jackson, born in 1989, and Stephen Randall Randy Jr. Jackson, born in 1992. But then, the records show something that seems almost impossible. Dante was reportedly born just 8 months after Randy Jr. Could 2 children really share the same mother with such a small gap? Medically speaking, that timeline doesn't add up, and that was the first red flag that had family historians and casual observers alike scratching their heads and wondering if Dante's biological father might actually be someone else entirely. The situation only became more complex when Alejandra left Randy and became involved with his older brother, Jermaine Jackson. She and Jermaine reportedly married in secret in 1995, with Alejandra allegedly saying she found Jermaine more family-oriented than Randy. Together, they had 2 sons, Jafar, born in July 1996, and Jermajesti, born in October 2000. This overlapping of relationships and children naturally fueled speculation. How could anyone keep track of the exact sequence of events? And could Dante's birth have somehow been entwined with this transition between brothers? Was there more to the story than the public ever knew? Perhaps the most telling detail about Dante's mysterious beginnings was the fact that his birth certificate did not list a father at all. People wondered endlessly, was it Randy, Jermaine, or even Joe Jackson, the patriarch of the family? Legally, none of them were named, leaving a huge blank on a document that usually tells you where you come from. Instead, Dante was adopted by Catherine and Joe Jackson when he was about 2 years old, a move that added another layer to the mystery. Later, Alejandra and Jermaine took over raising him, but by then, the whispers and questions about his true parentage were already deeply entrenched in the family narrative. Even family photos and personal interactions seemed to fuel the intrigue. Observers noted that Michael Jackson, in particular, seemed to show Dante a level of attention that was unusual compared to other children in the family. Some people remarked that Dante didn't resemble Randy at all, sparking even more speculation. Michael's behavior, attending Dante's school events, giving him special access to his private recording studio, was interpreted by many as suggestive, and these moments only added to the swirling theories about a possible father-son connection. Dante himself was not immune to these questions, and at times he expressed confusion and longing for clarity, once asking, "Why don't I have baby pictures?" Only to receive vague answers that left him even more uncertain. Looking back at these tangled timelines, overlapping relationships, and ambiguous records, one has to wonder, how much of Dante's story has been shaped by speculation and how much by documented fact? Could there be a truth that no one has fully uncovered, hidden in the complex web of the Jackson family's history? Or are these anomalies simply the result of misremembered dates and incomplete paperwork? Either way, the story of Dante's parentage has remained a puzzle for decades, drawing curiosity, debate, and an almost endless stream of questions that continue to hover over one of pop culture's most famous families. Even today, as people revisit old photos, timelines, and accounts, the mystery still resonates, leaving one to ask again, who is Donte Jackson really? And will the truth ever be fully revealed? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.